Live Zone. It is now 1 minute past the top of the hour, 2 o'clock to be exact, covering some of our top stories right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone, one of which happens to be the war in Gaza. Joining us now with the latest is Harley Lippman, foreign policy expert. And Mr. Lippman, it is always a pleasure to see you and always a pleasure to have you right here on the Live Zone. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Lippman, walk me through with regard to what's going on as of late. It's to my understanding that Israel now directing a large population in Gaza to enter central Gaza as they plan for a ground offensive. What are you hearing about this?
Israel has to be able to win the war. Otherwise, the deaths of over 1,000 people that were slaughtered by Hamas and Israel's security is, the deaths of all these people would be in vain. And the security for Israel, it would not be there anymore because Hamas has said they'll repeat it and they'll do it again. Why I'm saying this is that Israel has to be able to win. And then and only then, when you have victory, can you have the possibility of peace in the region and a Palestinian nation that everybody's talking about. But unless Israel has victory, I don't see how it's possible that you could have a Palestinian nation because they will simply repeat what they said they would do. So I think that Israel has to do what their generals are telling them to do so they could have a successful outcome and then move forward with some kind of Marshall Plan to help the people in the region. But you can't do it until you have victory.
Yeah, and in this case, as you stated, it is, or as I stated rather, and as you co-signed, it is with a ground offensive. With that ground offensive, President Biden has actually spoken out saying that he's somewhat concerned about this and worried that this will cross Red Cross lines.
Yeah, I think that Biden and Bibi Netanyahu are being very helped by this debate because Biden is using it politically because he's worried about people on the liberal left who think that he's too weak and soft on Israel and needs to defend the Palestinians more. So by him speaking about a Palestinian nation, it helps politically him here in the United States. For Bibi Netanyahu, people don't realize that in Israel, the right wing is pretty strong. In fact, the country is more right wing than even the government in many ways. And the majority of the people do not want a Palestinian nation in Israel. And so, Bibi, this is shoring up his popularity in Israel because if there's one issue he has that he could take the high ground on, it's not having a Palestinian nation. And that's a very complicated area because on one level, you could say it's already been accepted by Israel. Bibi Netanyahu already said he would accept a Palestinian nation, and Israel has said that many times. So you can't walk that back. It's kind of a done deal. The real question is, what will it look like? And that's the big issue. Because if you just say, we'll just create a Palestine, it's not going to solve anything. It's not going to create peace. I mean, let's just start off with the fact that, number one, Hamas doesn't want a Palestinian nation, and they said that. They want a caliphate. They're an ISIS derivative. They're out for a caliphate across the Middle East. So, and the other misconception is that people think that October 7th happened because Hamas wanted a Palestine. Again, they don't want a Palestine. They want to murder Jews. And that's the conclusion that Israel has come to, that the Palestinians want to murder Jews.
Yeah.
And that if they have a Palestinian nation, it's only there as an advance movement to the destruction of Israel.
Yeah,
I mean, let's keep in mind, there was a poll done in the West Bank in which 58% of the Palestinians said they enthusiastically support what happened on October 7th. Now, what does that say? October 7th was the largest slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. The murder of people who were actually Israelis who were the most pro-Palestinian, who were the poorest of Jews, and who included children, a grandmother who's 82 years old, and people like that. And they were slaughtered. So it's not because they want a Palestinian nation. It's because they want to wipe out Israel.
Yeah, obviously a very tragic and dire situation that continues to unfold in Gaza. As I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking about what's happening now, I guess the question is what needs to happen for long term stability? And that key word being stability, I think that's what we all want to see.
Well, I think you'll have stability when you have closure. Now, how do you have closure? The best example is World War II. The United States was attacked by the Japanese in Pearl Harbor. There were about 3,000 Americans who died, and it was a military installation. Yet, when one night the United States in its war against Japan bombed Tokyo, the United States killed over 100,000 civilians in Tokyo. Now, we don't talk about that. But why is it that 80 years later, Japan has no interest in war? 4 generations later in Japan, they have no interest in a military conflict. Why? Because they were utterly and totally defeated. Like Germany, why is it also 80 years later they have no appetite for war? Because they were utterly and totally defeated. And that's how you have closure. So when you do that, then you could help bring in a Marshall Plan like we did in Europe. And when you do have a Palestinian nation, make sure you have democratic institutions. You know, the United States and Israel agreed to a Palestinian nation in 2002. They gave 7 conditions, and neither the Palestinian Authority or Hamas honored any of them. It was dealing with corruption, it was dealing with terrorism. So you can have a Palestinian nation, but it has to have institutions that are going to show an independent judiciary, a free press, a governance that is not based on terror. If you create a Palestine now, Hamas will lead it. And there'll be even more violence and more civilians killed. So the idea is not just a Palestinian nation, but one with institutions that's committed to peace with their neighbor.
Yeah, an issue that we will obviously continue to follow right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Once again, Mr. Harvey Lippman, foreign policy expert, joining us on the Live Zone. Sir, you are always constant and you are always available, and we appreciate you coming on the show. We'll chat soon.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Not sure how I get out of here.